Hello and welcome to today's video. It's about my reading plans for 2026 and I'm going to show you also my entire TBR, and that's why you're going to have to put up with a bit of shaky cam because there is so much of it I could not get it fixed inside a shot that I could do with a tripod. Sorry about that, but you'll just have to put up with it. We'll be back to something a bit more fixed in a minute after I've actually shown you all the books, okay? So let's get to it. So this is my entire TBR at the moment, and we'll start down on the floor, and to the left there you can see a pile of books about folklore, witchcraft, various esoteric things I guess you'd say. Moving across, we've then got a stack of Dark Shadows novels from the American TV show in the 1960s and 70s. Moving across again, we've got some Tales of the Weird from the British Library, a pile of those. And then on the far right, we've got fiction, W through to Z. Now obviously there's a shelf of books right behind those that you can't see, and that's fiction K to Z. No, K to W. Let's get it right. Above that, of course, we've got another two shelves of fiction. And above those, we've got three shelves of non-fiction, which takes us up to the ceiling. These non-fiction books are about movies. There's biographies, autobiographies of actors and directors. There's some autobiographies and biographies of musicians up there, and writers too, as well as some miscellaneous non-fiction stuff. And that is my entire TBR. As of today, the 1st of January 2026. Hi everyone, it's Mark from No Book Left Behind. Happy New Year! Welcome to 2026. And we've got another year's worth of reading ahead of us. What could be better? Well, a few things actually. In my case, at least. Because I looked at my plans for reading for this year and I came up with a slight issue. Because the reason I've shown you my TBR there is because, pretty obviously, it's well out of hand. I thought it was about 207, 208 books. That's what I counted the last time I counted. Unfortunately, I missed the bookshelf downstairs, which is my overspill, if you like. And it's not 207 or 208. It's considerably more. So, drum roll please. The exact total is so clearly that's pretty silly and far too many, and is causing me actual problems because although you can't see it, there's another bookcase behind the camera which has got all my fiction in it. And now there's fiction books piled everywhere. These are books that I've read and want to keep, and I can't fit them all in there anymore because they are supposed to go into the TBR bookcase. At least some of them are. And yeah, there's no room, obviously, is there? Because I'm using the floor already for things I haven't even read. So, yes, I've got to get this sorted out. So, predictably enough, I'm on a Read What You Own challenge now. Starting today, no more buying books. I'm on a book buying ban until I read 100 books from my TBR. Now, that's going to be quite a challenge. Firstly, because I'm incredibly weak and very poor at resisting temptation. And that really does go down to buying books. That's the way I got through COVID, was buying a lot of secondhand books, really. And yeah, it's going to be a challenge not to buy anything. There is a caveat, and the caveat is if I find a book that I've been looking for a while and it's suddenly at a reasonable price, I'm obviously going to pick it up. I can't not do that and punish myself. It would be silly. But if I do, I'm going to put another 5 onto the total of my 100. So yeah, I've got to be a good boy. Otherwise, this TBR may never end, or this Read What You Own challenge may never end, shall I say. Yeah. The thing is that if you've watched my reading roundups, you'll know that I don't read a tremendous number of books a month. It's usually somewhere between 7 and 10. So if you extrapolate that, yeah, I'm going to be on this Read What You Own challenge all year. So the idea is I don't buy any books at all into 2026. I'm not sure I'll be able to stick to that, but well, we'll see how it goes. I'll do my best, and obviously I'll keep you guys updated as to how it's going. But it is going to be a bit of a struggle, I think. Anyway, as part of that, I thought I'd identify some books that I want to read this year and that I'm planning to read this year. Ones that not necessarily going on my January TBR straight away. That's a slightly later video. But ones that I'm going to get round to sometime this year, and I'm quite determined to. And I'm going to take these from the shelves, and then I'll show them to you, and then I'm going to put them back and forget it. And then at this time next year, we'll have a video to see how I got on and whether those 12 random books that I picked did actually get read or not. So we'll see. So 6 of each, 6 of fiction, 6 of non-fiction, and we'll start with the non-fiction ones. And so, going just randomly, the first thing I picked was this book, The Man Who Was B. Traven by Will Wyatt. Now, if you don't know who B. Traven was, he was an author back in the early part of the 20th century. He lived in Mexico. He mostly wrote about the poorer indigenous peoples of that country. His most famous novel was The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, which was made into a classic movie in 1948 by John Huston of the same name, which won an Oscar for his father Walter, who played the old prospector in it, and also starred Humphrey Bogart and Tim Holt. It's a classic movie. I can't recommend it enough. The book is great too. I've read all Traven's books. They are great. I'm a big fan. The point is, nobody knew who he was. He was a total man of mystery. He lived out somewhere in the boonies, in the Mexican Badlands, or whatever you want to call it. And, no one really knew who he was. There have been various stories floating around over the years, trying to guess his identity. I think the most famous is that he was a German, and he was a revolutionary who'd been kicked out of that country and ended up in Mexico. So during the shooting of Treasure of the Sierra Madre, B. Traven's literary agent, a guy called Hal Croves, turned up on set. Now, John Huston was always convinced that Hal Croves actually was B. Traven, but again, that's unproved. And these mysteries will hopefully be addressed and solved in this volume. And I've had this for a long time, and I've always been intrigued by the whole mystery of who B. Traven was, so I want to get around to reading it. It's about time I did. So that was an obvious one to pick. Next up, something slightly different, of course. We've got a biography, Moanin at Midnight, the life and times of blues singer, guitar player Howlin' Wolf. And I'm looking forward to this a lot because I love Howlin' Wolf's music. I'm not a huge blues fan by any means. In fact, I think he's the premier blues artist that I like. I can't really name someone else, actually, whose music I have. Not whose music I have completely, their entire catalogue. Hadn't thought about that before. But yeah, this is likely going to be a very interesting and fascinating story. I don't know anything about Howlin' Wolf's life, but I suspect it was probably quite a hard one, quite a tough one, I would imagine. The only thing I know is that in the 1960s he was championed by the Rolling Stones and had a sort of late career revival where he did some TV spots and things. I think he even did the Ed Sullivan Show. I might be wrong about that, but he did some big network TV shows, and I think he may have even toured in the UK. Not entirely sure. I'm not old enough to have seen him. Not quite. But yes, I'm looking forward to that. That looks really interesting. Next up is a slightly battered copy, but it was cheap. The autobiography of Werner Herzog, the film director. It's called Every Man for Himself and God Against All. Werner is an incredibly interesting guy. If you've ever seen any of his films, you'd probably say, that's an interesting filmmaker. But he also makes documentaries, and he's made more documentaries now than he has feature films. And they're fascinating too. And he's often in them and presenting them. And he's just such a fascinating bloke, such an interesting guy. The sort of bloke you'd love to have round for dinner to have a chat with, because he'd just be a fountain of wisdom and knowledge, I think, and just experience as well. He's just been everywhere and pretty much done everything. So I'm really looking forward to reading about it in his book. This is quite a new purchase, actually, for a change. But yeah, looking forward to it. So those are the first three. After that, oh yes. Staying in the world of film, we've got a couple of books about the film director Otto Preminger. We've got Otto Preminger, The Man Who Would Be King, which is by Foster Hirsch, a very battered old copy, which I got cheap. And interestingly, we've got Preminger's own autobiography. Now, I quite like doing this, and I've done this before, where I've taken someone who's written an autobiography, read that, and then read an actual biography to see how things may have differed from their own personal recollections. And Preminger was apparently an awful big head, a complete blowhard. People found him very, very hard to work with because he was so full of himself. So I think this could be an extremely funny experience. And obviously an interesting one too. But yes, so I've got those two I picked out as two I want to read. And the last one of the non-fictions, I've mentioned this on the channel at least twice before, I think. And the channel's only been going since September. So I am determined to read Malcolm Gaskill's Witchfinders. Absolutely determined. I am going to read that this year. Definitely. It is about the Witchfinder General Matthew Hopkins. He was operating in a part of the world that I actually come from, East Anglia, in the UK, and it's a fascinating tale, no doubt. It's a very substantial book, even though it's a small paperback. It's very small print, lots of pages. Looking forward to it. Really want to hear about it. Really want to hear the history, and I am determined to get round to finally reading it this year. Those are the 6 non-fiction books, and now we'll move on to my half dozen fiction choices. Okay, so I've picked 6 fiction books that I'm going to try and get round to this year. Let's start with some thriller and noir kind of material. And let's start with Jim Thompson's Heed the Thunder. Now, Thompson is a massive noir author, and I've read a total of 1 book by him. And that was his first book, Now and on Earth, which was not noir at all, but was semi-autobiographical. It was very good, mind you, but not really the sort of thing I'd normally read. And I do think that maybe Heed the Thunder isn't all that noir either. I don't actually know. I've got some other books by him, but I'm going to try and read them in roughly chronological order of publication. So yeah, it's about time I got a handle on Jim Thompson, I think. It's been well overdue, so I'm going to try and get round to that. The other 2 choices of noir thrillers, if you like, are really obvious ones because it's to do with series. Because Walter Mosley's Charcoal Joe, which I actually had on my TBR for this month? No, last month, December, I think. Yes, it's 2026 now, Mark. Get used to it. This is part of his Easy Roll-In series. I think this is book 14. I think there are 2 more afterwards. I just want to get up to date with it. It's been too long. I took too long between reading number 12, Little Green, I think it was, and Rose Gold, number 13. I didn't touch the series for a couple of years, and I just want to get up to date with it. And that's far more the case with the next choice, because this one is Jeffrey Deaver's Broken Window, which is part of his Lincoln Rhyme series. Now, I love the Lincoln Rhyme series, and I read the first 6 books pretty much off the bat. As soon as I discovered them, I went through them bang, 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 because I just thought it was great. And then I kept buying them and stopped reading them for no reason that I can possibly imagine. I think there are now another 7 or 8, and I do have them. They're sitting there behind me, and I haven't read them. And I don't know what year this is. Although Deaver is an absolute demon, he puts out so many books. He's one of those authors it's really hard to keep up with anyway, even if you were making a special effort all the time. But yeah, so I really do want to get back into Lincoln Rhyme and that series, and I just feel I'm so far behind with them, and I do enjoy them so much. I love them that I really have missed them. So it's about time I got back to it. It's about time I read The Broken Window. So those are the first three. The other three are slightly different. The first one of which is a classic. And it's a classic I've meant to get round to for a long, long time. I've had this copy of it for, probably getting on 10 years. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe not that long. I don't know. Now, this is The Brothers Karamazov by Fydor Dostoevsky. I have read everything else that Dostoevsky ever published. And I mean everything. I made a special effort because I like it so much. I'm such an admirer. This one, I have just never got round to it. I think, basically, let's face it, it's a bit intimidating, isn't it? I don't know offhand how many pages this is. Well, let's have a look. How many pages is it? I haven't got my glasses on, so this could be interesting. I'll have to actually get it right up under my nose. 776, I think that is. Yeah. So it is a bit intimidating. Dostoevsky obviously isn't a swift, speedy read anyway. And that's a point with this TBR challenge, really, isn't it? Because it's tempting to pick all the really slim books, all the easy ones that you get through really easily, and leave the big hardbacks, the big substantial books. They're just kind of like, later, I'll read that one later. But I've been saying that about this one for possibly the most part of 10 years. So it's about time I got around to it. But it won't be a very interesting TBR. It won't be a very interesting reading roundup video that month when I do it, because I'll just be holding this up for 20 minutes talking about this one book, probably. That's if I can actually get it read in a month, of course. There is that. So, yeah. Anyway, finally, the final book I've picked is another case of not a series exactly, but an author that I've read a lot of, and I think I may have read everything, but I'm not entirely sure. And I've been meaning to get round to these books for ages, because I'll explain. This is William Hope Hodgson's first book of the 5 that were published in these wonderful hardback editions by Nightshade Books. Now, it took me years to collect all 5, and the last one in particular cost me an awful lot of money. Basically, more than twice as much as I've ever paid for any other book. And it was easily the cheapest copy of it I'd ever seen. Because I got round to these rather late on. I knew Hodgson's work and I'd read a lot of it, but I wasn't familiar with these Nightshade editions until they were becoming quite rare and quite hard to get. So yeah, I did spend a lot of money on that volume 4. But it's done now and I'm happy with it, but I still haven't read them. It's ridiculous, isn't it? I still haven't read them, and I think I wouldn't like to tell you what the price of all 5 of them together actually comes to, but it's a considerable amount of money. And, well, for me, I mean, it's not silly money because I don't have silly money, but, yeah, it's still substantial, cost. And, I realised I just never got round to reading them, and it's just ridiculous. So I thought, right, that's one I'm definitely going to get round to at least starting on these. And so I'm definitely going to read this first volume this year. I promise. Right. Sorry about all the shine on the camera there, by the way, but they're quite well finished with quite a glossy silver finish, those books. Lastly, one I do want to get round to as well is one that was in my book haul, the last book haul I did, the lazy content one. This is Arthur Machen and Between Two Worlds. This is an author I've been meaning to try for forever, really. I remember seeing him quoted at the start of various H.P. Lovecraft stories, and I must have read them about 20 years ago, because Lovecraft loved him, so I think I probably will too. So I've been meaning to get round to Machen just forever. So yes, I'm determined to do it. This is a book that's not got all his work in it, but has got a lot of the substantial stuff. So at least it'll give me an idea whether I want to ferret out absolutely everything that I can, which I probably will, because I usually do. But that's it. That's the last one of the dozen, the dirty dozen, perhaps. These are the books that I'm going to get round to this year. I'm determined that I'm going to do it one way or another, at least some of them anyway. And now, once I finish this video, I'm just going to put them back and forget which ones I picked, so that, as I said before, I can see in a year's time, did I get round to all of them or didn't I? Did I manage to keep my Read What You Own challenge going? Did I manage to read 100 books in the year that I already own without buying anything else? I have my doubts, but I'm going to try. I'm going to try real hard. So that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for joining me and for sticking with me right the way until the end. And please don't forget to like, subscribe and ring that notification bell if this kind of amateurish, chaotic content is something that for some reason you enjoy. What are your plans for reading for 2026? What books have you got your eye on? Please pop the titles in the comments below. I'd love to know. And in the meantime, please keep searching through those charity shops and those second-hand bookstores for those obscure titles, those treasures that only you can find. Cheers. And Happy New Year.